You've been staring at the wrong rocks. I know that stings, but stick with me because it's the single reason your vial keeps coming home empty. You walk the creek, you see a big, beautiful chunk of quartz, your heart jumps, you dig, you pan, and you get nothing but a little black sand and a lot of disappointment. You go home, you tell yourself the ground's played out. Maybe you're just unlucky. Here's the truth nobody told you. Gold isn't rare in the places people think are empty. What's rare is knowing how to read the ground. The rocks around the gold talk louder than the gold itself, and most folks walk right past the cob of the conversation. So today I'm going to hand you 7 kinds of rock that don't have a single flake of gold in them. But every one of them is a road sign pointing you closer. I'll tell you exactly what each one looks like, why it means gold is near, the simple field check to confirm it, and where to stand when you see it. Stay to the end, because the 7th sign is the one almost nobody outside professional geology talks about, and it's the one that separates the guys who fill a vial from the guys who fill a story about the one that got away. Quick question before we go deep, and I really do read these. How long have you been chasing your first real color? And has a creek ever sent you home with an empty vial? Tell me in the comments. Now, before I show you a single rock, you need to understand one thing, because this is where almost everyone goes wrong. Gold doesn't just appear anywhere it feels like. Gold is born in very specific conditions, deep underground where superheated water loaded with dissolved minerals gets forced up through cracks in the earth. As that hot fluid cools and loses pressure, it drops its cargo. Gold comes out of that fluid. But so do a bunch of other minerals, and they come out right alongside it in the same veins at the same time. That's the key. Gold has neighbors. It never travels alone, so when you find the neighbors, you've found the neighborhood, even if you haven't knocked on the right door yet. On top of that, once gold weathers out of that vein and washes into a creek, it's heavy, almost 19 times heavier than water, and it drops out of the current the second the water slows down. So half of reading the ground is spotting gold's mineral neighbors, and the other half is spotting the places where heavy things stop moving. Every rock I'm about to show you is one of those 2 things, a neighbor or a trap. Get those 2 ideas in your head, and you'll never look at a creek the same way again. Let's start with the one that shocks most people because they've been kicking it out of the way for years. Ironstone. That's rock-stained deep rusty red, orange, sometimes almost brown-black, crumbly on the surface, often heavier than it looks like it should be. Geologists call the rusty crust Gossan, and here's what it's telling you. That red color is iron oxide, and iron oxide forms when a mineral called pyrite breaks down. Pyrite and gold are born in the exact same hot water veins together all the time. So when pyrite rots away at the surface and leaves that rusty stain, it's a receipt. It's proof a mineral vein used to be right there. And when the pyrite dissolved, the gold that came up with it didn't dissolve because gold doesn't rot. It got left behind, concentrated, right in and under that rusty rock. Some of the biggest gold mines on Earth were found by chasing Gossan. In the western states, old-timers followed rusty outcrops straight to buried veins, and whole districts opened up because one prospector took a rusty rock seriously. The beginner's mistake here is thinking rust means junk. You see rusty, crumbly rock and your brain says worthless. That's backwards. In the field, look for it on hillsides and cut banks above the creek. Look for a reddish stain bleeding down into the dirt and pan the soil right below it. That stain is gold's shadow. And if rust is gold's shadow, the next one is gold's front door. That front door is white quartz, but not the way you think, so pay attention. Because this is where the pain comes from. Quartz is the most common vein rock on the planet, and that hot mineral water I told you about, it loves to fill cracks with quartz. That's why you see so much of it. Milky white, glassy, sometimes clear, breaking into sharp chunks with flat phase. Now here's the part that skunks people. Most quartz has no gold. Plain, clean, sugary white quartz is usually barren. So folks find one clean piece, crack it open, see nothing, and swear off quartz forever. Wrong quartz. The quartz you want is ugly quartz. Quartz that's stained rusty. Quartz that's got little holes and pockets in it like Swiss cheese. Quartz shot through with dark streaks or a bluish gray tint. Those holes, geologists call it vuggy quartz, are where sulfide minerals used to sit before they weathered out, and gold rides with those sulfides. Rusty, boxy, holy quartz is quartz that had company. In the field, don't just look at loose float in the creek. Trace it uphill. Loose quartz chunks in the water came from a vein somewhere above you, and gravity carried them down. Follow the trail of quartz up the slope until it stops and you're standing near the source. The mistake is grabbing the prettiest white chunk and ignoring the ugly stained one. In gold country, ugly wins every time? Quick pause here because I want to make sure you actually get to use this stuff. Everything I just walked you through, the Gossan, reading quartz the right way, and dozens more tricks like it, is inside the Gold Prospector's Bible, 2026 edition. 50 field-tested tricks to stop getting skunked, laid out in plain language for real creeks and real ground. And right now, it comes with the 30-day skunk-proof roadmap completely free. A step-by-step 4-week plan to pick your ground, test smarter, and finally find your first real color. Links in the description, QR codes right there on your screen. This is the season you stop guessing where the gold is. Now let's get back to it, because the next rock is one people trip over all the time: Serpentine. That greenish, slick, waxy-looking rock, sometimes blue-green, sometimes almost black-green, smooth and soapy to the touch, often with a scaly, snakeskin surface. That's exactly where the name comes from. Here's why it matters. Serpentine forms deep down where the Earth's crust and the mantle grind together, and those grinding zones are where mineral-rich fluids get squeezed up toward the surface. Where you find belts of serpentine, you're often standing on the edge of an old fault, a giant crack in the earth, and faults are highways for gold-bearing fluid. In California, the famous gold belt runs for well over 100 miles, and serpentine shows up all through it, marking the boundary where the good ground begins. The proof is in the history. Billions of dollars in gold came out of that belt, and the geology that made the gold is the same geology that made the serpentine sitting right beside it. In the field, when the rock type changes, when you cross from one kind of ground into a band of green, slick rock, slow way down and start testing. Contacts, where two different rock types meet, are gold's favorite hiding spot because fluid moves along those seams. The beginner's mistake is walking straight across a rock type change without noticing it, panning the same spot all day. The gold's at the border, not the middle. And speaking of borders, the next sign is all about a color you've probably ignored because it's hiding at the bottom of your pan: black sand. Now this one lives in your pan already, and that's exactly why people misread it. It's that heavy dark layer, black to dark gray, sometimes with a reddish tint, that settles in the bottom of your pan and refuses to wash out. That black sand is mostly magnetite and hematite, iron minerals, and here's the whole point: they're heavy. Not as heavy as gold, but heavier than everything else in that creek. So wherever the water was strong enough to carry black sand, but too weak to carry it any further, it dropped it, and it dropped the gold in the very same spot. Because gold is even heavier and quits moving even sooner. Black sand is a map of where the current slows down. Find a thick black sand streak and you found a gold trap. This isn't theory, it's the reason every serious prospector chases the black. In the field, look for black sand piled up on the inside of river bends behind big boulders where the water goes calm, in the little pockets downstream of any obstruction, and packed down into cracks in the bedrock. The mistake, and I've seen it 100 times, is guys washing the black sand out of the pan too fast. Right down the drain, gold and all. Slow down. Where the black concentrates, the gold concentrates. Now here's your first warning about the villain of this whole video, because it loves to hide right in that black sand. That villain is pyrite. Fool's gold. It has skunked more prospectors than bad weather ever will. It's brassy yellow. It shines. And in the bottom of a pan with the sun hitting it, your heart will absolutely stop. But it's not gold. And knowing the difference in 5 seconds is the skill that saves your whole day. Pyrite is brittle and it forms sharp little cubes and hard angular crystals with flat faces. Real gold never does that. Gold is soft and rounded and smooth. So here's your 5-second field check. Push it with a pin or the tip of your knife. Pyrite shatters or resists. It crumbles into a greenish black powder. Gold dense and smears like a tiny piece of soft metal. It bends, it won't break. Second check, look at the shine. Pyrite flashes and sparkles and changes as you turn it in the light. Gold stays the same buttery yellow from every angle, sun or shade. It doesn't wink at you. Remember that pin test, because pyrite is going to come back before we're done, dressed up even better. Look, I'll be straight with you for a second. If you've read this far, you're not a casual. You actually want to fix this. So here's the honest version. The 50 field-tested tricks in the Gold Prospector's Bible are laid out across 5 chapters. Everything from reading rock to working bedrock to sampling a creek the smart way. It comes with a printable 10-minute streamside checklist you can fold in your pocket and run before you ever get your boots wet. And yes, that 30-day roadmap still comes free in the bundle right now. I honestly don't know how long that free gift stays in there. If you've been watching these videos thinking this could finally be your season, that's the move. Links in the description below, QR codes on your screen. Make this the year you find your first real color. All right, back to the rocks, because the next one is where the real gold hides. Bedrock. This is the big one, and it's the least understood, so listen close. Bedrock is the solid rock foundation under all that loose gravel in the creek, the true bottom of the whole system. It might be gray, tan, greenish, whatever the local rock is, but the point isn't the color, it's what it does. Gold is heavy, remember, so it sinks. It works its way down through the loose gravel over years, decades, centuries, until it hits something it can't sink through. That's bedrock. Gold stacks up on top of bedrock and jams itself into every crack, crevice, and groove in it. The old-timers called this the pay streak, and reaching bedrock is why hydraulic miners tore whole hillsides apart, because they knew the richest gold sat right on that hard bottom. If you've ever cleaned out a bedrock crack and found flakes packed down in there, you know the feeling. In the field, look for bedrock exposed in the creek. Look for cracks that run across the current, not with it, because cross cracks catch gold like a net while the water rushes over the top. Clean them out completely, get your fingers and a screwdriver and a spoon down in there, and scrape every bit of packed material into your pan. The beginner's mistake, the one that costs the most, is quitting 3 inches too soon, panning the loose surface gravel and never digging down to the hard bottom where the real weight is waiting. Every empty vial you've ever brought home, ask yourself, did you actually reach bedrock? Now for the last sign, the one I promise, the one almost nobody talks about. Here it is. Caliche and clay layers, the false bottom. This is the sign that shocks even experienced prospectors, and once you understand it, you'll rethink every hole you ever dug. In a lot of creeks, especially in the drier western ground, gold doesn't always make it all the way down to true bedrock. Sometimes it hits a hard-packed layer of clay, or a cemented layer of gravel and minerals called caliche, that whitish, concrete hard crust, and it stops there. That layer acts like a fake floor. It's so tight and packed that gold can't sink through it, so the gold piles up right on top, sometimes feet above the real bedrock. Here's why this matters so much. Guys who know to dig to bedrock will punch right through a clay or caliche layer thinking it's just more dirt in the way, and they blow straight past the richest pay in the whole hole. The gold was sitting on that false bottom the entire time. This is the difference between reading a book and reading the ground. In the field, when you're digging down and you suddenly hit a hard, tight, different colored layer, clay that's blue-gray or reddish, or that white cemented caliche, stop. Scrape the material right off the top of it and pan that first before you go any deeper. Test every hard layer as if it were bedrock, because to the gold it is. The reason almost nobody teaches this is that it's not glamorous. It's a dull gray layer of clay. But that dull gray clay has held more gold in place than most people will ever pan in a lifetime. And that's your 7th sign, the false bottom, the trap hiding above the trap. Let me tell you a true story that ties all this together, because it happened to a kid who wasn't even trying to be smart about it. Back in 1905 in Australia, a schoolboy was walking with his family when he spotted a heavy chunk of rock. His family kept it around, and for a while it was just a rock. Nothing special, the kind of thing that sits in a shed. But somebody finally took a real look. It turned out to be one of the largest gold nuggets found in modern times, weighing in around 27 kilograms, near 60 pounds, worth a fortune. And here's the lesson for you and me. That nugget wasn't hiding at the bottom of some deep secret hole. It was near the surface, in ground people had walked over. The knowledge is what made it gold instead of a doorstop. The exact same thing happened all through the American West. Ground that one man called worthless, the next man read correctly and pulled a fortune out of. The gold didn't move, the reading changed. That's the whole game. And I promised you the villain would come back one more time, better dressed, so here it is. The one that fools people worse than pyrite is fine, flaky mica in the black sand and in weathered granite. It's thin, it flashes gold or bronze in the sun, and when it floats and shimmers in your pan, brand new prospectors are dead sure they've struck it. Here's your check. Mica is feather light, it floats, and it flakes apart into paper-thin sheets when you press it. Gold sinks like a stone and never floats, and it dents instead of flaking. So if it's swirling and dancing near the top of the water, it's mica. Throw it back. If it's sitting like a dead weight in the very bottom corner of your pan and won't budge, now your heart can start pounding. Light dances, gold sits still. Burn that into your memory, and you'll never be fooled again. Now I'm curious, and this is the one I really want you to answer. Which of these 7 have you already found out there, even if you didn't know what it was at the time? The rusty ironstone, the holy quartz, the green serpentine, a fat streak of black sand, exposed bedrock, or that hard false bottom clay? Tell me in the comments which ones you've walked past. I read every single one and I answer the ones I can. So let's bring it home. 25 minutes ago, a rusty rock was junk, white quartz was a letdown, black sand was something you washed out of the pan, and clay was just dirt in your way. Now you know better. Now rusty Gossan is a receipt for a vein. Ugly holy quartz is worth 10 pretty ones. Serpentine marks the border where the good ground starts. Black sand is a map of where the current quits and the gold drops. Bedrock and its cracks are where the weight stacks up, and that false bottom clay is the secret floor holding gold feet above where everyone else digs. And pyrite and mica will never fool you again, because light dances and gold sits still. You didn't have bad luck all those years. You were reading the wrong signals, and now you're not. Here's my one favor. Next time you walk a riverbank, you don't want to be the person who stepped over a fortune and kept on walking. Subscribe so you're here for the next one, where I'm going to show you how to read a river bend and pick the exact spot the gold piles up before you ever get your pan wet. Good luck out there, gold hunter. Go read the ground and go get your color.